Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, a delay in the process to select a new Alachua County superintendent. We're live with why parents and neighbors feel district leaders are making the wrong moves.
Plus, combating misinformation this election season. How voters can spot fake info aimed at keeping you from casting your ballot.
And a UF professor takes his work to the national stage. How he made it from the classroom to the White House. First at 5 starts right now.
First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
The process to pick Alachua County's top educator is taking a backseat, at least for now. This is WUFT's First at 5. I'm Roches.
And I'm Alexis Vivanco. ACPS was set to select an interim superintendent at last night's meeting following the firing of the current one. But instead, the decision was moved to next month. WFT's Bianca Smith is live at Alachua County Public Schools headquarters, and Bianca, the parents that showed up last night were visibly frustrated with the board members.
Parents and residents did not hold back how they felt about Superintendent Shane Andrew being fired.
I'm from the district. I grew up here. The man is amazing. He has brought change in his community, whether we want to see it or not.
Ex-board member candidate Julian Kinsey spoke and said the decision to terminate the superintendent was motivated in bad faith. Board members appeared to be surprised by the audience's anger. Members of the community spoke about how they were upset at the lack of consistency within the school board.
Really here to say that I'm really disappointed in the process that was shown last weekend, or the lack thereof, how quickly this decision was made without any public input or the ability for people to come and give their input.
There have been 6 superintendents within the last 10 years in Alachua County. Andrew's contract was terminated last week following a 3-2 vote by the board.
So therefore, I could not, as much as I persuaded and tried to convince that new people.
The board members said they decided to fire Andrews because of personal reasons that made it hard for him to fit the position. Andrews has worked for the school district for 35 years.
That was Bianca Smith reporting. Newly elected board member Thomas Vu wrote in a Facebook post that the community deserves better. The school board will meet again on November 4th at 6:30 to decide on the candidate that will replace Andrew.
Ledrick Ferguson, a father of 3-year-old toddler who fatally shot himself, was sentenced to 15 years in prison this morning. The gun used in the child's death was his father's. Ferguson changed his original plea of not guilty to no contest during the hearing this morning, avoiding a trial. He will instead serve out his sentences: 15 years for negligent aggravated manslaughter of a child, 5 years each on 2 counts of child neglect, and 15 years for unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. He'll receive 777 days credit for the time he has already spent in jail.
Tomorrow, a judge will hear arguments about the GRU Authority ballot measure. This comes after GRU decided to sue Alachua County about the vote. Their aim is to remove the vote from the ballot. If the ballot is passed, it would return the company's leadership from state to city control.
We're taking a live look at the evening commute from our DOT cameras. This is I-75 over Paynes Prairie, where it's been another sunny day across north central Florida. Clear skies outside and perfect weather to head to the polls. UF's forecaster Matthew Clark is tracking how long we'll see this calmer weather.
It's another beautiful Florida fall type of day out there, and it's going to stay like this for the next foreseeable future, at least over the next week, with those blue skies, waking up to a little bit of early morning clouds, but for the most part, those blue skies are going to come out in the afternoon with temperatures in the low 80s and winds from the north around 14 miles per hour, keeping us a little bit cooler. For the rest of our area, though, we're seeing most of the low 80s for the most part, 81 degrees in Stark and 82 in Lake City. It's just a beautiful evening out there. There is a 20% chance of rain this evening coming from the East Coast. These are really tiny little showers that are moving through really quickly. So if anything, it's just kind of acting as a cool down from the low 80s. And even though those low 80s are pretty cool, we're going to drop into those low 60s as we head into the early morning hours. But it's just going to be a beautiful Tuesday afternoon and into Tuesday evening.
With 2 weeks to go until Election Day, it's an all-out sprint to get to the finish line for former President Trump and Vice President Harris. Both campaigns are seeking to drive their supporters to the polls. And as Bree Jackson reports, election officials are working to ensure voters and the ballots they cast remain safe.
Millions of Americans across the country eagerly casting their ballots as more states begin early voting.
Everyone is talking about this election. This is the biggest election in about 8 years.
Former President Obama campaigning in Wisconsin to help kick off early voting there, as the Harris-Walz campaign unleashes its top surrogates during this final stretch. Harris seeking to reach more voters on her own by taking part in more media interviews, including with NBC News. Former President Trump doing outreach across voting blocks, holding multiple events with faith leaders and Latino voters.
I don't know, but it's going to be close.
Trump is also attempting to raise doubts about this year's election while admitting he's seen no evidence of fraud.
Have either of you seen any cheating, incidents of cheating, that leads you to believe that this election will not be fair?
Well, I haven't.
Election officials and law enforcement releasing this ad warning of consequences for election interference.
What will not be tolerated is acts of violence or intimidation.
Celebrities are raising alarms about deepfakes designed to mislead Americans. This voter expressed confidence that their voice will be heard.
I feel like my vote is safe.
With voting underway in a tight race, officials stress there are systems in place to ensure every vote is counted. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
With elections coming up, the spread of misinformation is a big concern, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. AI spreads information, true or false, quickly. WUFT's Sarah Howard spoke with Alachua County Supervisor of Election officials about the issues.
Yes, I'm right outside of the Supervisor of Elections office. I spoke here earlier today with Director of Communications and Outreach Aaron Klein about misinformation and AI when it comes to voting. He tells me misinformation, nothing new, but AI is taking it to a completely new level. And remember, WUFT is here on election night with all of your coverage needs. Live from Alachua County, Sarah Howard, WUFT News.
Governor Ron DeSantis is spending the final weeks ahead of Election Day touring Florida to speak out against Florida's abortion amendment. Amendment 4 would make abortion a constitutional right, meaning legislative bans on the procedure would be removed. DeSantis spent time in Central Florida and Jacksonville today with doctors who are also against the measure.
This amendment, if adopted, it would be the first amendment in the history of the state of Florida to actually repeal a right. It will repeal the right of a parent to have to provide consent before their child undergoes an abortion.
The ballot measure is one of 9 across the country that look to place abortion rights at a state level following the overturning of Roe v. Wade by the conservative-leaning Supreme Court in 2022. And pushing back against the governor's stance on the controversial amendment is the Yes on 4 group. Today, more than 800 doctors came together to endorse the measure. During a call earlier today, the group says the governor and the doctors against the amendment are spreading misinformation about the abortion ban.
And the issue at hand is that patients are dying because of an abortion ban. We are not trying to put forward a radical abortion agenda. We're trying to take care of our patients, and that involves abortions.
Voters will decide if Amendment 4 passes on Election Day. The measure needs a 60% support in order to pass. It will then become a part of the state's constitution.
After falling behind in voting by mail, Florida Republicans have quickly moved ahead of Democrats in ballots cast in the November election on the strength of turning out to early voting sites. According to data from the State Division of Elections, Republicans outnumber Democrats by nearly 100,000 people on the first day of voting. The first day of early voting turnout put the GOP ahead of Democrats by just over 15,000 ballots cast ahead of next month's election. Republican Party of Florida Chairman Evan Power pointed to early voting as a key to the party's turnout strategy.
We usually try to keep it even going into Election Day and having our Election Day turn it over to us. If we're able to build an advantage like it looks like we're going to be doing in front of Election Day, we could get to R+8 or R+9, which would be uncharted territory in Florida.
In recent elections, Republicans have tended to prefer in-person early voting, while more Democrats have voted by mail. While most counties started early voting Monday, it must be available statewide as of Saturday. Florida has released recent early voting numbers. Alachua County currently has nearly 5,000 early votes, while Marion County has more than 8,000. and nearly 400,000 Floridians have already cast their vote early. Wesley Wilcox, a supervisor of elections for Marion County, stated that on Monday there were slightly less early votes than 2020, but he expects 2024 to have a larger early voting turnout than the previous election.
At UF, many students are casting their ballots for the first time. Alachua County has 8 early voting locations for the 2024 election. During early voting, the polls are open 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. University of Florida student Emily Goldstein says she's excited to be voting for the first time.
It's kind of exciting because it's like my parents have always voted, like they've very much encouraged me, and like having to finally be able to have a say in the government, and seeing the things that have been going on over the years, but I didn't really have a voice or anything, and now I finally do. It's kind of fun and exciting.
Early voting will last through Sunday, November 3rd. Voters must have registered by the October 7th deadline to vote. Election day is November 5th. For more stories on election season as early voting gets underway, you can visit the Campaign 2024 section of our website. You'll find candidate profiles, voting locations, and guides to amendment voting. That's all on WUFT.org.
Coming up on WFT's First at 5, we bring awareness to Pedestrian Safety Month. How local law enforcement are increasing safety efforts to help prevent these incidents. All that and more when we return.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
October is Pedestrian Safety Month in Gainesville, and local officials are urging everyone to stay alert and share the road responsibly. GPD says Gainesville accounts for 80% of pedestrian and bicyclist crashes in Alachua County, and that's why officers are stepping up efforts to improve safety. Sergeant Lynn Valdez says the city is focused on reducing traffic fatalities and serious injuries through the Vision Zero action plan. Officers will be placed in high-risk areas to educate both pedestrians and drivers as part of a new high-visibility enforcement program.
We are going to put officers in designated areas where we've had pedestrian incidents at certain times where we're seeing those incidents, and they're going to be out there educating the public, not only the pedestrians and the bicyclists, but possibly the vehicles that are also contributing.
Officer Valdez says heavy traffic, especially during weekends and football games, makes Gainesville a hotspot for accidents. She encourages everyone to be vigilant and use traffic signals, emphasizing that safety is a shared responsibility for all road users.
President Joe Biden appointed University of Florida distinguished computer science professor Juan Gilbert to the National Science Board. Gilbert is one of 8 members appointed to the board. Gilbert, chair of UF's Department of Computer and Information Science and Engineering, leads the Computing for Social Good Lab, which focuses on projects that are at the intersection of people, technology, and science. Last year, President Biden honored Gilbert with the National Medal of Technology and Innovation for pioneering a universal voting system that makes voting more reliable and accessible for everyone, and for increasing diversity in the computer science workforce.
A well-known organization is looking to help Gainesville families in need this holiday season. The Salvation Army provides Christmas gifts to over 250 families through their annual Angel Tree program. The program provides gifts for local children who might not otherwise receive any during the holidays. However, the Gainesville Salvation Army is seeing a lack of applicants this year. Commanding Officer Major Ernest Hull wants to spread the word and help as many families as possible.
We want to make sure the word is out there everywhere it can possibly be, so that we can help as many children as possible. We don't want anyone left behind.
Families in need are encouraged to stop in the East University Avenue office and register to participate. Angel Tree registration closes this Thursday at 2:30 p.m.
This weekend, the Fest is coming to town, an independent underground music festival held annually in Gainesville. The festival is set to start Thursday, October 24th at City Hall. Hot Water Music, who will be performing this weekend, will be given the keys to the city and will be given their own day. October 24th will henceforth be known as Hot Water Music Day. The group is native to Gainesville and are celebrating their 30-year anniversary. This isn't the first time Gainesville is doing this, as they awarded another Gainesville artist, Laura Jane Grace, with the keys to the city last year.
An isolated shower is possible this evening. I will track our rain chances through the weekend coming up.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
It's another beautiful Florida fall day out there overlooking our campus, Cam. A couple overhead clouds, but those blue skies are dominant and the temperatures are in the low 80s and it feels like 80 degrees as we're getting some gusty winds from the east-northeast at around 14-15 miles per hour, keeping us a little bit cooler. Going to be a nice sunset for our Tuesday evening tonight. Temperatures for the rest of North Florida, though, in the low 80s, 83 in Ocala, 83 in Bronson, and 82 over in High Springs. Seeing 79 up in Jacksonville. A couple passing showers are going to be possible this evening, around 20% chance, but these are really quick moving showers, just bringing in a couple little sprinkles, mainly just going to cool us down even further from the 80s, although 80s this time of year is pretty nice. Dew point, measure of moisture in the atmosphere, 65 degrees in Gainesville. To put a benchmark, usually summertime it's in the 70s, so we're getting a little bit of break from those muggy temperatures for the most part. And as we head into later parts of this week and into the weekend, those dew points are going to drop into that pleasant category. So this weekend is going to be very beautiful. And even though it's Tuesday, can't rule out the weekend. Hour by hour heading into tonight and into early Wednesday morning, temperatures are going to drop into the 60s. And when we're waking up on our Wednesday morning, temperatures are going to be in the lower 60s, 65 in Gainesville, 61 in Lake City, and 60 in Live Oak. It's going to be like this for at least the next week or so when we're having highs in the 80s and lows in the 60s. As we wake up tomorrow, few passing clouds, but then those mostly sunny skies are going to come out, and it's going to be another beautiful Florida fall day on our Wednesday. Thursday, much of the same. High pressure system over the southeastern part of the U.S. This is what's going to dictate our weather for the most part. Going to be bringing in a lot of northeast winds, which is going to be cooling us down, keeping us in those low 80s and those low 60s in the morning. Going to be getting a couple passing showers for the most part. And again, even though it's Tuesday, can't be overruling the weekend. Going to be a beautiful weekend out there on our Saturday and Sunday with temperatures reaching up into the lower 80s and waking up in the lower 60s as well. So even though it's Tuesday, looking forward to the weekend. This past weekend, though, we did have two named storms. Nadine was a tropical storm that went to the Yucatan, and Oscar was a Category 1 hurricane that hit into Cuba. Now it's a post-tropical depression expected just to move off into the North Atlantic. All is going to be quiet in the North Atlantic and in the Caribbean for at least the next week, so good news there. 7-day outlook, 7-day worth of weather. Temperatures staying around the 80s, and again, those temperatures as lows in the lower 60s, so it's going to be a beautiful next week.
Coming up in sports, a high school volleyball team is on the hunt for a state championship. Plus, how Gators men's basketball is preparing ahead of their season opener. We'll have that and more after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Scarlett Cooney. Gators men's basketball continues to prepare for their November 4th season opener. Head coach Todd Golden said he's happy with the strides the team is making on defense.
I think this year we're just playing kind of more of a pressure style defensively, bothering the ball, bothering passing lanes, making it harder for the opponent to operate. So that's kind of our goal. Again, we were pretty successful that way. On Saturday we turned them over quite a bit, but Charleston will present another challenge, and we'll be able to see how we do against a team that kind of spreads it out a little more.
The Gators toppled FIU 80-49 in a scrimmage on Saturday. They'll host Charleston this weekend for their second preseason scrimmage before opening their season on November 4th against USF. Staying in Gator sports, the latest coaches poll shows Florida volleyball dropping to number 24 in the rankings, despite being fresh off 2 sweeps on the road this weekend. After taking down Texas A&M and LSU, Florida's Kennedy Martin was named SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. Martin posted a team-high 17 kills, 6 blocks, and 4 digs in the Gators sweep over the Aggies. She continued her 40-match streak of double-digit kills against LSU with 12. Martin and the Gators have the week off before hosting Tennessee on Friday for their Dig Pink match. In high school volleyball, the Oak Hall Eagles are playing in the regional quarterfinals tonight at home against the Providence School Stallions. The Eagles boast a 16-2 record, sitting at first in their division. On an 8-game win streak, Oak Hall is coming off consecutive sweeps over Rocky Bayou Christian and PK Young. Tonight they'll host the 13-6 Stallions for a chance to advance to the regional semifinals on Saturday. From the court to the turf, the Gainesville High School Hurricanes defeated Lake Weir last night 36-8, snapping a 2-game losing streak. Quarterback Nelson Tambling and receiver Calvin Thomas connected in the end zone 4 times, helping Thomas collect 211 yards on the night. This was a much-needed win for the Hurricanes before they faced district rival Vanguard on Friday in their second-to-last regular season game. Up to the pros, the Bucks took a 41-31 beating at home last night from the Ravens in the latest edition of Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay allowed 34 unanswered points from the Ravens, but the game, that isn't all the Bucs lost. Star receiver Mike Evans hauled in his 100th career receiving touchdown, but just 2 drives later, he re-aggravated a hamstring injury and was ruled out for the rest of the game. Then in the final seconds of defeat, fellow receiver Chris Godwin was carted off the field after dislocating his ankle. Godwin is expected to undergo surgery later this week and miss the rest of the season. Finally, the NBA regular season starts tonight, featuring defending champion Boston Celtics hosting the New York Knicks and the Lakers hosting the Timberwolves. You guys excited for the NBA to start up again?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm a Chicago girl, so I'm looking to follow the Bulls.
Well, I'm from South Florida, so obviously, the Miami Heat is kind of where I stay, from the 305, of course. But even still, we're talking about the Heat. It's pretty hot down there. But Matthew, what do you think it's going to be like for the rest of the week over here?
Yeah, at least we're getting a break from the heat. I'm not a big NBA guy myself, but I'm a big weather guy, and I'm a big fan of this 7-day outlook, seeing temperatures in the low 80s, and this weekend looking beautiful with lows again in the 80s. So even though we're only on Tuesday, Saturday and Sunday are going to be remaining much of the same with the temperatures that we've been seeing this week. Low rain chances, beautiful sunny skies.
Thanks for joining us. We're back here tomorrow for another edition of First at 5.
But your North Central Florida news is always on at WUFT.org and on all our social media platforms. Have a good night.